Welcome to the September 2nd Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees just so we know who's been joining these calls. And then we'll kick off the agenda as we always do by pausing for a minute to give people a chance to raise any other topics they'd like to bring up or any things that they'd like to add to the any other business section, or even just general community discussion. Okay, this is not your only opportunity, so if you have things that you want to add in, please do tag them into the any other business section. We don't have a lightning talk lined up today. It's something that we do need to get back on to track for getting these more regularly scheduled, but it hasn't happened yet. So if you do have a topic you want to bring up, please please propose it here or reach out to me via Slack, and we'll get you scheduled in. So at this point, I'll pull up the end user issues and we'll take a look at the recent user raised issues that have come in and just make sure that they're getting the appropriate attention. I see a question around RMI that's come in yesterday, and there has not been a response there yet. So it's something that if anyone has particular RMI skills and wants to get involved in that, that would be appreciated. And we'll follow up with this and make sure that somebody's taking a look at it. A question about zero capacity local frames. So, all right, looks like this is being talked about. Maybe some issues to be raised with, or warnings to be raised in JNI check, and a number of other JNI check conversations going on as well. But it looks like there's some discussion in these already. So overall, things are looking good here. Are there other user raised issues that people are worried are not getting the attention they need or something that we should be jumping on?
There is the operator issue that so there will be a process open, and we need to see if we need to open and create a separate repo. So if you can, somebody can give me some information that help with forward.
Okay, that issue is still on the any other business section. So why don't we jump into that in more detail later in the call? Does that work for you, Raghu?
Yeah.
Are there other issues in here that need to be called out? All right, then we'll come back to this and we will take a look at download stats today. We're seeing an uptick in downloads, which is good. And I'll throw the hotspot numbers on there as well. Looks like the slope of our line is slightly less than the uptick in the slope in the hotspot downloads. But that's not that different from what we've been seeing before. Is there anything else people want to dig into with the download stats at the moment? Okay. All right, then the next item is the 0.22 release for Java 15 coming up in September. We've had the M1 builds kicked off. A fair bit of triage has gone into that. We had the M2 build scheduled for August 31st, but I don't think those have happened at this point. I'm not aware of the repo being tagged for that because there's still a couple of things outstanding that should get into that. So we've shifted that date. I don't know we've actually picked an official date for that M2 build. So I've pulled up the agenda and just taking a look at what's left in here. There are 12 open items, a couple of them related to hidden classes, a couple of JDK 15 test failures that we'll have to take a look at. But given there's only 12 here, I think we should just take a quick run through these and make sure that the issues that need to be addressed are getting handled for this upcoming release. So for the hidden classes issue, there's the hidden class implementation for pull requests to address that. Hung, whether you think there's more changes needed after that?
So that pull request is being reviewed, and once the change is merged, the hidden class issue will be closed, and there's only one test failure left. So that's everything.
Okay. All right, so hopefully we'll get that in this week then. Looking at the SSL errors. Given the state of this, I'm going to move this forward because it doesn't look like it's going to close out in the next few days. We have a AArch64 issue here.
If AArch64 is not going to be part of JDK 15, then this probably shouldn't be here. I think this is just another manifestation of an issue that we've been seeing with the native crypto install on some of these devices. Statosan has actually reproduced it outside of Java entirely. You can get intermittent failures that way as well. So we still need to get to the bottom of it.
Okay. So on that basis, I'm going to move it forward.
Yeah.
String joiner failure. All right, it doesn't look like this has been looked at in detail. There's a duplicate of this, I believe, that's been closed, but no updates there. So we'll have to get somebody to take a look at this to determine what the effect of this is on shipping 15. So we're seeing a similar failure here, but no. Again, we'll need to make a call on this, possibly offline, once we have a little more details on that to determine whether that's stop ship or not. Update the OpenSSL to the latest version is something we carry with us and always validate sort of at the last minute to make sure OpenSSL hasn't shifted versions or issued security patches since we last shipped. So we'll carry that until the very end. Containerized JVM will not use more than 25 gig heap.
Yes, this one and next one, it's document only. Change requests are there waiting for review. We could remove it from here and tag document requests, like whatever you like. this one and next one.
Okay. Because the docs don't affect the milestone builds, I think we should keep that here and make sure that we get the doc pull request reviewed and merged. But that certainly helps. All right. Then we have the define class should link the class. Hung, we had talked about this on the last week's call. Was this something that was going to get rolled into the hidden classes changes?
So yes, in my current pull request, I have this for hidden class, but for non-hidden class, it's another API. So yeah, my change will partially fix this, but it won't close this issue. The last one on the list.
Yeah, I had to go look up what the number was. 1047.1. Okay. All right, so that's something that we should try to get addressed and should be a fairly straightforward fix. This is just tracking the release details and the hidden class test failure. So, Hung, I'm assuming this is addressed through your PR and through the test exclusion?
Yes, so this is caused by the different format that we append to the anonymous and hidden class name. So we don't have OX in the identifier, so it's minor issue.
Okay. So once your PR, the hidden class implementation 4 is merged, this can be closed as well?
So once my current PR is merged, there will be only one failure. So it's related to the nestmate. So, but I don't think it's a big issue. So.
Okay, can you get details of what the failure is? And we can.
So it's a failure that somebody defined a nest host of a hidden class in another package or under another class loader. So in that case, we cannot get the nest host of the hidden class. So they have some checks over that. So currently we are failing that test.
We're failing because we're not throwing the right error?
Currently we have an exception when we're trying to get the real nest host, and the OpenJDK doesn't have any exception. So I don't know I don't know more details there. So, but I don't think it's a big problem. So
Okay, we'll have to take a look and see if we can get that addressed.
yeah, so it only happens if someone define a nest host under another class loader or in another package. So
okay. So it sounds like we're down to sort of one PR that's under review, and then a couple of issues that we need to make stop ship determinations on, and a couple of small issues still to fix. Given where we are in the release, that's still a little concerning, probably more than a little concerning. So do ask that if you're looking for something to be picking up, that you do take one of these stop ship issues in particular, or one of these issues that we haven't done the analysis on yet, and help determine whether they are stop ship. And also if somebody has an opportunity to take a look at this, that would be good as well. So I'll be reaching out to people and working with you, Toby, on getting these things assigned out and making sure that somebody's closing these out for the release. Does anyone have any questions or concerns or things they want to call out for this release? So at this point, we've missed the August 31st date for that milestone 2 build. But if I take a look at a calendar, it might be worth trying to get that milestone build done next week, just as an early preview to make sure that there's no other outstanding issues that we need to resolve before we can ship the week after. So I will tentatively tag that for September the 8th. That does mean that we are doing M2 builds at the same time that we're looking at the code split for 023. When we take a look at that milestone, we have a lot of items that are open here that have not been addressed. And so, you know, another request goes out to make sure that we are looking at this list and burning this down as well. I know when we have these dual releases where the new JDK release and the quarterly release come out after each other, it's difficult to get everything contained. But it is something we do need to focus on and see if we can burn down some of these things that have been being carried forward from release to release. So just a reminder on that, the code split for this is currently scheduled for September 7th as well. Do we have an update from the Adopt group?
Sorry, I didn't get a chance to update this note. I don't think there's anything in particular to bring up.
Okay, thanks, Shelley. And I see no update for the machines. So thank you to the group that and team that has been maintaining those, to Adam and Joe and others who have been involved in that. It's always nice to be able to say that things are working well and no update is needed. So that brings us to the any other business section of the meeting. Devin, is there an update on CMake?
Yeah, I've got the changes in for AIX. I posted a thing in the Slack if anyone could launch a build, so I don't know if anyone listening can do that with more testing, just so as a sanity check before we flip the switch on the default on that. For the Windows side, I have 2 PRs open, one on the VM side and one on the JDK extension side to get things built there. There, I'm seeing an issue in the testing pretty early on where it's like a file not found thing while trying to launch Ant. I don't think it's an install thing. I think it seems like it's probably we're missing a define somewhere, and assuming like a Linux style path, Unix style path instead of the Windows path, and doing something there. So I'm hoping that's something that's pretty simple to fix up.
Okay. It sounds like we're not going to make the code split for the October release then.
Not for the Windows stuff. The 8 stuff, like I said, I just need to run the test and then flip the switch, and that's it's there.
Okay. the Windows issues. Is there any other questions or concerns or discussion for the CMake migration work? Thanks, Devin. Then let's have a discussion around the Kubernetes operator. So last week we had raised some concerns with the size of the contribution, the licensing and copied code, and then how we were going to test and maintain this. And some of that discussion has moved into the pull request around this. So Raghu, is there a particular area you wanted to discuss on this call today?
What I was thinking is I think the concern about the size is real. What is being done is the runtime component operator, which is developed by the WebSphere team, and there's a team that maintains it. It makes sense to sort of base it on it, because writing everything from scratch is probably a duplication of work. But the size is, because of that, size becomes a concern. To sort of address that, we could have this hosted in a totally separate repo, and I need some help finding out how we go about doing that. Do we just open I think we need a repo to open a pull request. I don't know what process we have to follow to open a new repo. If somebody can help me and direct me, that would be great. One thing. The other thing is the operator review of some other parts, irrespective of where it is going. It could still be done, especially the documentation, because it's just how people should use it. If somebody wants to, I can make a cluster available if they are in IBM, and see if they can give it a try, deploying it, and see if they find any issues or whatnot. If anybody volunteers, that'll be great. But the test has already been done. But this is only for the purpose of documentation, to see that it's actually easy for customers to any user to kind of follow the documentation.
So, okay.
Do you want me to?
Raghu, thanks for the offer to share a cluster to test this. Is that an offer to provide a long-term cluster for ongoing testing of this, so that we can validate it and maintain it in the open, or is that a one-off walk through the workflow?
It's a one-off thing, because the cluster is IBM machine. So what we have done is we are trying to do a Jenkins job that actually tests it before we make any updates, or before we run the, or at least have a way internally to test this operator is working. We are trying to, once that Jenkins job is fully working, we are trying to see if there is a way on existing Adopt OpenJDK machines on a single cluster, if there is a way to simply test this out. But we will get there once we resolve all these issues and actually get the PR to somewhere, at least in a shape where it is agreeable to put it in. And also another thing before I forget is the license. The license is the same as the one that is in the runtime operators and the OpenLiberty and OpenJ9. I think all of them are Apache licensed too. But I am if there is an issue related to copying or whatnot, needs to be looked at. So I'm going to make it a point to kind of double check that.
For new code that comes into the project, it should be licensed under the EPL v2 license as well. So
Oh, okay.
we dual license the code so that it can be consumed under the Apache license. But generally, as a project and as part of the Eclipse Foundation, code should be licensed under the Eclipse licenses. So anything new we add should be dual licensed under the EPL v2. And we will have to make a special case for handling the dual licensing of this code as well. So there are some process things we'll have to figure out with the Eclipse Foundation on how to consume it and the licensing around it. But I think we can push off a bit as long as we're doing the right things for licensing all the code that has been written under EPL v2 as well. And of course, respecting the licenses of the base operator that we're building on.
Do we have somebody that we talk to about these things to make sure?
I think that licensing discussion is an issue for the project when we decide that we're wanting to try and accept it. Right,
Okay.
the project committee will deal with that as and
Okay.
when the decision is taken on how it's going to be incorporated, right, Dan?
Yes, and we'll do that in conjunction with the Eclipse Foundation. The process is generally that we create something called a contributor questionnaire that talks about the licensing and then is validated by the foundation just to make sure that the right things are being done in terms of licenses.
Yeah, just touching on the size of that code repo and all the different the apparent appearance of other components beyond just the top level license from a comment that Leo made. I'm wondering if this is actually built or being structured the most effective way in terms of making it easy for us as a project to maintain it, right? I'm very concerned that we're going to accept a big blob of code and probably put it in a separate repo because of different licensing, and it's just going to sit there unloved and rotting, especially since we don't have an ongoing test story for the cluster and stuff.
The test story is coming next, but what happens once it goes and sits in a repo is we will basically create some requests for it to be listed on a bunch of operator hubs, which basically shows a logo or something in OpenJ9 operator. That way it is going to give create some visibility for OpenJ9 itself, and then people can come and download use through operators. That's what's going to happen next. But I agree that I did talk to Chris about this. If there is any restructuring required, as in integrating the component, we are looking into that. I had a chat with Chris last week, and I will come back with an update on that one to see if there are a bunch of changes that needs to be done to sort of properly integrate them, and we will do them as the review process goes. And what I've basically been told, it's not a huge change. It's a change, but can be done in a reasonable amount of time.
Just following on that, Dan, with the like currently we're a source only project. Would hosting this affect that status, seeing as there's an insinuation there that it's going to be consumed, like this component would be consumed and posted for consumption on these repositories or whatever? That seems like a bit of a change in our operating model.
That's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer to that. It's something we should probably check with the foundation as well.
I can characterize this a little bit on what actually happened. This is still code in the sense this is not different from how a build script is, for example, because at the end of the day we do some, we get the code and do some deploying on our own laptops. This still doesn't have any binaries in it itself. it only pulls the adopt OpenJDK Docker image, but it's still a sort of an orchestration to use OpenJ9.
Yeah, so it doesn't deliver OpenJ9 binaries on its own, but it does sort of change the way we've talked about the project and the fact that this project does not produce binaries for OpenJ9 directly. So I more discussion is required there, and we'll have to dig into exactly what that means. I'll have to go back through some of the information around from the foundation on when we set the project up, just to make sure that we're operating within our mandate with this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Just checking if Mark is on the call, as he was involved in the. Don't see him, so we'll have to follow up on that.
Yeah, I think Mark's away today, but he's responding to email and stuff if you need to reach out to him, Dan.
So I do want to circle back to Andrew's concerns on the ongoing maintainability of this code, because it's something that I've expressed concerns about as well in the past, is that once we accept this, how do we validate pull requests against this without being dependent on IBM internal infrastructure?
So there is a plan in place. We have a Jenkins fully working in the machines inside IBM. We will create a CI/CD process that will validate any changes that are made to this operator. Looks like it will be on a single node kind of a system, but we will try to get that working as soon as we have this review completed.
So is that an offer to donate that or allow use of that by the project?
No, we will try to use the existing machines to do that, but the contribution is only going to be some CI/CD pipeline creation, job creation, that kind of stuff, scripting to make that happen.
So we'll need to talk about licensing requirements on whatever on building an OpenShift cluster. If this project is taking on owning this code and maintaining it, we need to be able to figure out how we're going to build and test that in the open, and what would need to be donated to be able to do that, whether that's a cluster, whether that's OpenShift licenses, whatever that may end up being.
Yeah, I certainly don't think, in my personal opinion, the project should be accepting code without a testing story for it that is usable by anybody who's going to come to the project and work on it. There's no way that we can support maintaining code that doesn't have a test story like that, I don't think, especially since this is code that I feel is a bit different to a lot of the stuff in OpenJ9. So a lot of the committers and contributors in our community are not going to be super familiar with this. That testing is going to be really important, in my opinion.
As I said, we are working on the testing, so if that all needs to go in at once, that won't be sort of an agile way of looking at it, putting the whole thing together. But that's what is required, can be done.
So I don't want to say it all has to go in at once, but the story has to be very clear, very fleshed out, and something that the community is comfortable with, and in particular also agrees with the timelines.
Then I think I can create a test story and test issue, and then start adding some information there. And from your side, if there is anybody who is going to look at some of the things that we discussed and get back on how we need to proceed.
So when I pull up the issue, if I go back a little bit, I brought up, okay, good, Chris has responded. So I think further discussion should continue in this issue around, maintenance and testing has has been mentioned here. The long-term commitment has been mentioned. There's been some ongoing discussion around updates and how to structure this project to be able to work with the runtime component repo. So, I think once we have some of those things addressed, we can take the next look into this and help move this forward.
Okay.
So this is probably not going to be a short process given the large contribution, the different area that it is for this project. But it is something we hope to work through with you to see how we can make this work in the best possible way.
Do we agree that it should be a separate repo, and if so, if we can have an action item for following that up, that would be great.
So I'd like to continue the review where we've created it here, because we do have to take that code, a copy of the code and a reference to it when we create the CQ. So whether we've created a new repo or not, let's finish the review and agree that this is in the right shape, and then we can figure out where it hosts. Getting a review created, or a repo created, is a fairly minor process for us, so that shouldn't be a concern.
Okay.
So, please continue this conversation in the issue there. Please continue to raise concerns, especially new concerns with that code, and we'll continue to flesh out what the plan is and what needs to happen in that issue. And if necessary, we can book some additional meetings to discuss how to move this forward separately. In terms of the microjet, do we have an update there?
So the meeting last week was quite productive. There's been good progress happening at UNB. So there's a couple of items that are going to be taken forward at the moment. So they're doing a bunch of cleanup in their implementation. There's a little bit of refactoring that's going to be done in the linkage on the OpenJ9 side, so that the UNB folks can consume the linkage properties descriptions from OpenJ9, so that they don't have to reverse engineer the entire linkage for the microjet. And they are still working on getting the guarded counting recompilation implementation working, so that they can drop the extra 2 field that was in their original request. So meetings are going to continue. It's not quite ready to land yet, because they're still addressing the linkage and the control integration concerns, but it's been very positive, very productive. There's been a lot of engagement from a number of people. So thank you to everyone who's participated. And the next meeting will be a week this Thursday. So it'll be the 10th of September that we have the next working group meeting. But Scott's around on Slack and actively working at the moment if anyone has any questions for him.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. In terms of this next item, the proposal to create the OpenJ9 utils repo, that's passed. The repo has been created, and we've had our first couple of pull requests there. So thank you to Andrew for that, and to Sharon for getting the first pieces of code landed there, or first pieces of pull request open there. So I will remove this from the agenda. The next item was something that Daryl had added, and unfortunately has had to drop, but he left a comment just highlighting that the ARM32 support, there's a proposal to remove that from OpenJ9. The issue around this proposal has been open for a couple of weeks. I highlighted it on last week's call, and Daryl would like to move forward with this in the very near future. So if there are concerns with this, or people who are looking to step up and own maintaining that code, please speak up now, or get something into the issue there so we can have a further discussion on that. Otherwise, as things stand, we will be proceeding with removing that code.
Have we had any requests for that platform in any of the channels that you're aware of, or is it mostly ARCH64 that we've been getting?
When we first open sourced the project, there was interest in ARM32, but we didn't have a fully functional implementation then, and quite frankly, we still don't. A lot of the interest these days comes around dealing with Raspberry Pis, in that although the chips have started to be 64-bit, a lot of the OSs and easy setups that people are using are all still 32-bit. I'm not aware of any other people, any other groups actively looking for that support right now. I think we're seeing an industry shift towards the 64-bit support.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And there's an issue related to curating the GitHub topics. Which I think we were going to have tentatively dealt with by August 26th. And I don't see that has happened. So just poke mark on this. And hopefully we'll have that addressed for next time. All right, was there any other business that people wanted to bring up today? Okay, then I guess we'll call that for today. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll meet again on September the 9th.
Thanks.
Thank you.